The Russian Cossack is the first unit to replace the cavalry, and really all that's different is it has a defense of 4 rather than 3, which means it's still not quite a defensive unit, but it can hold its own against a rifleman if it attacks you, so it gives it a slight edge on the cavalry, but not really that much to make it something special. The Panzer is the Germans' answer to the tank, and it's actually the unique unit that comes latest in the game. Now, its benefit is it has a movement of 3 rather than 2, which is a little bit of an edge, but by that point in the game, things are usually pretty much decided anyway, and there's not long between the time you get the tank and the time you get the modern armor, which has a movement of 3 anyway, so I wouldn't say it's that useful. The English man-o'-war is almost completely useless, if only for the fact that it replaces the frigate, which is only used for a very, very short time before the ironclad makes it obsolete. It has a slightly better attack rating, but still, its attack rating is lower than the ironclad's defense or attack rating, and it requires the same resources, and it has no greater movement or no less cost. So really, it's not useful at all. The American F-15 replaces the jet fighter, and in this game, it is completely useless. As you can see, I needed to add a new category called Rate of Fire. It can attack twice in a turn, but still, the jet fighter as it is pretty much useless in attacking. Air combat is not that good in this game, and the F-15 doesn't really make it better, so there's really no benefit at all to having this replace the jet fighter. Now we get to the first of the units that was in the Play the World expansion pack. The Mongols have the Cossack, I believe it's pronounced, which really isn't that useful. It is actually less powerful than the knight. Its defense is 2 instead of 3. It's slightly cheaper, but really not by that much, and you don't need iron. So, generally, I really wouldn't say it's a benefit. Now, the Conquistidor is unique in the fact that it replaces a non-military unit, the Explorer, and since no one builds the Explorer, it pretty much exists on its own. Now, it comes later, so it's not really good in war, but pretty much the only way that this is useful is it can move, though it technically has a movement of 2, it can move 6 squares, because it treats every square like a road. And it is useful for sneaking into enemy territory and pillaging. Pretty much the only thing it is really used for. So it's somewhat useful, but I wouldn't say it's a great addition. Now, the Scandinavian Berserk kicks a lot of ass. This unit has an attack of 6, much better than the medieval infantry's 4. Their attack rating is so good, it can hold its own against riflemen. It's in there for a long time. Of course, it's a lot more expensive than the medieval infantry, but I think it's worth it. It also doesn't need any resources, which can be a benefit if you are low on resources, but these things can just hack right through even musketmen, and hold their own against riflemen, so I think they're very useful. Now, if you're like me, most of the time when you play Civilization 3 and you get to the Middle Ages, you set your tech tree on a direct beeline to military strategy so that you can get the cavalry, because the cavalry are so useful. The Sipahi, or however they're pronounced, are doubly so. They are amazing. With their attack of 8, there's no stopping them. They can outclass riflemen, and they can even almost match infantry, keeping them useful long after even the cavalry. They cost a little bit more, but not that much. These are a great soldier, and I might even say that these are the best of all the unique units. The Gallic Swordsman is the Celtic unit, and it is basically a more mobile swordsman with its movement of 2. Now, that might be pretty useful, but when you consider the cost, it's almost double. So that pretty much takes away a lot of the benefit. But because having that movement is still pretty useful, I would call it slightly useful, but not really that much. The Arabs' Ansar warrior is kind of like the Mongols' unit, but better, because it is not only cheaper, but it has a 3rd movement point. It still does have a defense of 2, but that can be overlooked in the fact of its greater movement and its slightly lower cost. This will make for some Middle Ages conflicts to be a little easier with these units, so they're pretty useful. The Carthaginian Numidian Mercenary is another unit that replaces the Spearman and the Pikeman, just like the Greek Hoplite. However, the difference is it has an attack of 2 and a cost of 3. Now that cost increase makes it take a lot longer to defend your cities in the ancient times than if you were building spearmen. So that makes it not quite as useful as the hoplite. It's still somewhat useful though, but not really that much of a benefit. Now the Korean Hwach'a, apart from having a pretty cool name, is probably as useless, if not more so, than the F-15. It's the only bombardment unit to be a unique unit, and its only benefit is it has a 50% higher bombardment strength. But since the cannon is pretty bad at bombardment, and I usually wait until I get artillery to really do heavy bombardment, I really don't think it makes a lick of difference. So overall, I would have to give the win to the Ottomans with their Sipahi. They improve on the already awesome cavalry, and it is a formidable offensive unit. You're not going to be putting your feet on this Ottoman if it's attacking you. In second place, I would put the Persians and their Immortals, being a powerhouse unit for the late ancient times and the early Middle Ages, as well as the Berserk for the rest of the Middle Ages. Now you see my 3 losers are the 3 non-land units, and that's not only because land warfare was the most well developed in this game, and sea warfare, and especially air warfare, were somewhat lacking. It is also because, well, in the Koreans' case, their unit just didn't pack much punch and wasn't really useful, and the Americans, the same problem, and it also came too late, and the man of war lasted for such a short time and wasn't very useful anyway. I mean, I can understand why they wanted to give each of those units to those civilizations, because it fits with their personality, but really, it just doesn't work. Well, that's what I think about the 24 civilizations special units, unique units from Civilization 3, Play the World. I hope to see you in more Let's Plays starting as soon as possible. See you later.